at the port, the mayor's having a press conference on clean buses or trucks or something.
Please welcome Mr. Rosendahl, the Vice Chair of the Trade, Tourism, and Commerce Committee of the City of Los Angeles. Mr. Clerk, I turn it over to Mr. Rosendahl.
You know, he's the best tourist guy we got in this whole city. God bless you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Morning, everybody. Sorry to make it so early. If I had my way, these meetings wouldn't be at 8:45 in the morning.
But if I had my way, they'd be at 8. Because the thing about City Hall, the earlier you start, the more you get done, right?
See, he lives in Silver Lake.
I know, that's true, that's true.
Under the gridlock scene. Agenda item number 1.
Item number 1 is a
Oh, look who's here.
is a contract amendment for Flyway bus service at from Van Nuys to LAX.
Morning. So how are we doing on our Flyway? We love it from downtown. That seems to be working well, right?
Yes, it's working very well. I'm Michael Biaggi for the Department of Airports.
Thanks, Margaret.
Olivia Service-Valunga from CAO's office.
Okay, 3 quick questions before I go into real questions. Tell us how it's doing from downtown. How is it doing from West LA? And what are our other plans with the whole business?
Well, let's start with the downtown Flyway.
Good.
The Union Station Flyway, as we call it, is extremely successful. We carried over 250,000 passengers last year, and we expect that number to continue to grow as people are given various modes of seamless travel with bus and rail lines that are coming into Union Station. We have some exciting partnerships that we are forging with Metro and MetroLink, where people will actually be able to use their Easy Transit Pass that they buy for buses on our Flyway bus. And if you're a MetroLink rider, you can purchase a ticket to the airport at any of the 56 MetroLink ticket vending machines throughout the Southern California region. So we're excited about the intermodal opportunities that Union Station presents for us. With respect to the Westwood route, it started off a little slower than we anticipated, but as expected, we have seen that ridership grow as well. We're up around 10,000, 11,000 riders a month now, and we're making some service level adjustments to that route to match the service we provide with the demand that the passengers are having. That'll help us to manage the costs a little bit better, keep the customer service levels high at that facility, and we're excited about that program as well. We're using compressed natural gas buses on the Westwood route, clean fuel buses, free internet access back and forth to the airport. So it's a great service. The next in line for Flyway is probably going to be Irvine. I was down in Irvine on Friday looking at the new parking structure that's been constructed. It's a beautiful structure, lots of free parking there, and we think a market that is ripe for a Flyway type service to LAX. We plan to price that accordingly, given the distance from Irvine to the airport, and probably have that up and running within the next 120 days.
I think that's a great one. To me, that's, again, a no-brainer. How about Anaheim? Have we looked at that, too?
Anaheim is in kind of the embryonic planning stages. There are a couple of locations we're looking at, trying to evaluate what would be the best option for us, looking for the kinds of parking we think we would need for a facility such as Anaheim. Yeah. So that might be the next one after Irvine.
One of the complaints anecdotally I've heard from workers at the airport, who like to take it to get to their areas and not go into the gridlock into getting into the airport, is that it kind of fills up at Terminal 1, 2, and 3, and by the time it gets to 6 or 7, it passes it by. Any truth to that?
There is some truth to that at the peak times, and what we have done to counteract that is send dedicated buses that pick up on the south side of the airport as their first stop. So starting with Terminal 4 or 5, they'll pick up at those terminals only and then exit the airport.
And we have a survey about our workers there, about how many use it and don't use it or would like to use it and so on.
We haven't done any surveys, but we have data on ridership, and from Van Nuys it's about 20%. Union Station's a little bit higher percentage of employees that are riding that bus. The Westwood numbers for employees are low, primarily students, professors, and others who live in the community around Westwood are riding that Flyway service.
Here are some other questions. I'm very supportive, obviously, of the Flyway service, and I'm eager to see it expand. So I love what you're just saying about Irvine.
Right.
That's great. The Van Nuys and Union Station service, I think, have proven to be real difference in vehicles miles saved. There's been talk recently of increasing fares to reduce the airport's subsidy of the service. Is that any truth in that?
Yes, in fact, there will be an item that will go again to our Board of Airport Commissioners on the 8th of October that will request a fare increase, a modest fare increase, still well below other modes of transportation if you were to take a taxi cab or a town car, or even to drive yourself back and forth to the airport. But we are bumping up the fees a little bit. And I should point out,
Sure, Tommy.
the fees have been raised by $1 since 1975. So in all that time, the fees
What
have
are we
gone up
paying?
very little. $4 one way on any of the 3 routes. It's a bargain.
I know, but what I want you to do is raise your parking and have a big sign there. The parking fee helps subsidize $4, $5 Flyway service. Make the connection between the parking so you discourage people from parking and they use Flyway. What do you think, Bill?
It's worth looking into.
Worth looking into. Give it a
Want to get
once
back
over.
to us with that?
Sure.
Some concept. I'd rather have you, instead of raising the fees off the riders of the service,
Yeah.
raise it off the people who park there, because then you're discouraging them. Similar to what they did somewhere else, if I remember from your notes.
Well, and one of the things we're facing, quite frankly, Councilmember, is a lot of the off-airport private lots are priced very competitively, and rather than taking the Flyway, people will drive into one of those lots and park over there and then take their shuttle into the airport. In those instances, the only revenue that the airport gains is the trip fee for that parking lot shuttle that has to come into and out of our airport.
But you get
And those fees are
30%,
artificially
we get
low at this
30%
point
of their
as well.
parking
Do we
on
get-
the tax,
Do we
right?
get what is our percentage on those?
10%
10%.
occupancy tax, yes.
No, but on the parking tax, it's the parking tax in Los
The parking tax is 10%.
10%.
Right.
How much growth have we seen in the Van Nuys Flyway last year? And how much do we expect in the future?
Last year, I believe the growth was about 12%, and we expect that to climb probably by about half this year. The gas prices were a large factor in the extensive growth that we saw. One of the surveys that we found, that we did in Van Nuys, found that about 18% of the riders for the year, or I'm sorry, during the survey period, were new riders, had never taken the service before, despite the fact that it's been in existence for 30 years.
I mean, any thoughts about the Westwood one and getting the word out? Because I know a lot of folks in CD5 and actually in CD11. Though CD11 kind of likes to go on its own because it's as close to the airport as you can possibly get, more or less. But any way to encourage like some Bel Air types and some Westwood types and even my Brentwood types to realize they can just go there. I haven't seen any signage or any. Have we talked to like neighborhood councils there or Chamber of Commerce or any of those groups about this service?
I'm not familiar with the specifics of what our Public Relations Division has done, but I know every holiday period, and specifically for Westwood, when school is back in session,
School,
when there's a
no,
break,
no-brainer.
et cetera, they always do promotional campaigns to advertise that
Just take a peek
service.
and see if there's anything broader than just the student element there with the local chambers of commerce and neighborhood councils and homeowner groups. So I have heard from some, I didn't even know it existed kind of thing that they have said.
And that's the interesting part about the Flyway, because when you consider that the Van Nuys route has been in existence for, as I said, 30 years,
Yeah.
and you still have 18% of the people that have never taken it, that says something that either they haven't ever considered it because gas used to be cheap, maybe they haven't heard about it, et cetera. So, yeah, we'll look into that.
Take a fresh look at what our marketing strategies are
Okay.
in getting the word out. My office regularly receives calls from residents in Westchester concerning the Flyway bus use of Sepulveda Boulevard to bypass traffic on the 405, bringing buses into the community and creating traffic and pollution. Is this true? And if it is, what can we do about that as a practice?
Well, a couple of years ago, we heard that there were complaints that the buses were getting off at Howard Hughes Parkway
Yeah.
during the early morning hours, rumbling down Sepulveda Boulevard, and waking up the neighborhood. So we directed our operator to cease that practice from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. So during those times, they go all the way down to Century Boulevard on the freeway and come up Century to the airport. The rest of the time, however, they do use the Howard Hughes route. It is faster, it's more efficient for us, and it just works out better. And I should point out that there are a number of other buses and large vehicles that are using those routes. And while our buses are a part of that, we're not the only ones out there. And our task really is to provide the very best customer service that we can. People want to get to the airport quickly and efficiently. we don't go through the neighborhoods, but getting off at Howard Hughes Parkway allows us to get people to the airport faster.
I also received complaints that in downtown Westchester, that some of the buses leave their engines idling. Is that true?
It used to be true. It's not true anymore. We have strict controls in place now on the non-idling of buses as drivers take breaks, go to lunch, etc.
You see how clever we are? We're learning all these things. What about a dirty bus? I mean, it drives me nuts when I see an old school bus just blow out the back like that. And I'm also getting complaints that we do get a trail of black smoke behind. Have we looked at the fleet to see where they are in terms of the new day?
We have looked at the fleet, and a lot of the older buses have the exhaust that you just described.
Yeah.
The newer buses that have been spec'd out, the diesel engines are much cleaner. They come with particulate traps to contain all of that matter on the interior of the exhaust system, and those traps get cleaned. We do have some old buses that are still in the fleet, and as the routes grow and as the contracts are awarded, we do specify the age of the bus and the kind of engine that we want to see so that the environment is not damaged by what we're doing.
Mr. Lubine, do you want to add anything
Just
more?
one thing on Van Nuys. With the Amtrak and Metrolink and service to Van Nuys, would it make any sense to have a connection directly to the rail stop in Van Nuys? And would you just look at that? I know you're something to look at because who knows if that would be an option for people to use the service. Direct connection to start there. At times when the train comes, because I know the train doesn't come the same frequency as you, but maybe a link from there to Van Nuys.
We'd be happy to look at that.
And also look at if there's any shot coming up from Orange County, which you're looking at in the future, that brings you faster. Maybe they're not coming all the way. I don't know how many people from Commerce, let's say, would take the train to Los Angeles to catch the Flyway, but maybe people from south or southern part of the counties would do that, and if they got off either at Commerce or at whatever the other stations are between Anaheim, Fullerton, etc., and then you get that 105 directly across. And I guess too, when the modernization of San Diego Freeway is improved, that will help your flow a lot better. I always look at your buses to look at the silhouettes of the heads, and I always see heads in there, which are, I think, that it is working. So I would move to support this when you're ready to support it.
A couple of thoughts. In fact, one of my deputies just came back from Northern California on the train to be absolutely in keeping with where we need to go in this day and age. And he says, to improve the rider experience, it would be helpful to post LED sign curbside at each terminal, and say when the next bus will arrive. Because when you get off of a train, you're into that, looking up and seeing what's next, and like you would in New York, and they do it in San Francisco. What is especially helpful for out-of-town travelers, who are used to such real-time information. And that exists, obviously, in San Francisco Muni system, for example. Next bus to Union Station arrives in, that kind of thing.
9 minutes.
You think we can kind of tie some signage and timing with the trains coming in?
Well, you're playing right into my hand because we are doing that for the LAX shuttle buses right now. We're in the process of implementing those kinds of message boards that will tell passengers when the next bus to the remote parking lots is arriving. And we plan to expand that program to the Flyway buses once we have proven that the system works with our own fleet of parking lot shuttles. So yes, that's something we're looking at, excited about, and believe can be a benefit to the travelers. Because when you're standing on the curb and you don't have information, time increases exponentially.
Totally.
And all of a sudden you've been waiting 10 minutes, it feels like 30.
Right.
But if you know that next bus is coming in a certain number of minutes, then you can relax.
Exactly.
So that's information we
Tie it
think
in,
the traveler should
That
have.
kind of signage thing, a happier will be.
Right.
One more thing from my end, I know Arnold Sachs wants to come on. Come on up, Arnold. I know you want to speak on this one. Is the holiday season. It is October 1st today. Can you get back to us? I don't want you to kill yourself, but by mid-November, whenever our meeting is in mid-November, with a exciting strategy for the holidays. And the holidays, as far as I'm concerned, start with the Thanksgiving scene and go into the Christmas scene. Of how more awareness can be. Hey, we don't have to take our car. Let's just get on that flyaway. Some kind of a holiday flyaway. Throw some reindeers in it or something, and kind of give it some fresh new energy for the holiday season.
Certainly, we'd be happy to come back with that kind of a report.
Great. Hang loose for a second. Arnold, you're up.
Yeah, good morning, Arnold Sachs. Very quickly, I believe, might have been 4 months ago, there was an item on the airport commissioner's agenda to increase or to discuss new routes for Flyway.
Yes.
And so I'm curious to find out what the status is on that, because I believe I read in the newspaper where they were going to buy, and they were also going to buy buses for the Flyway. And it turns out, I think that the newspaper turned it into an article that they were buying new shuttle buses for the parking lots and not for the Flyway, so that they can increase the routes. What's the status on a route for the Flyway to the ports? I would think that, to quote a famous councilman, it would be a no-brainer to go to the ports. And there's quite a few people that, just to increase the ridership. Just what the status is on that. And since you happen to mention the holidays, and every holiday for the last, 50 years, the LA Times and the local newspapers will put a story out regarding, if you're going to fly over the holidays, get there 3 days early. What is the airport's plans to finally alleviate some of the traffic that comes off of, like, northbound on Sepulveda, not coming off the 105 per se, but that intersection at Sepulveda and Imperial Highway that always turns into a bottleneck. And would that be under the purview of the airport police, or would that be under the purview of the LA City Department of Transportation, so that there could be some traffic officers? Because no matter what you do, the people will run the lights, stack up through the intersection either way, or they'll try to make a U-turn to get, when they come off the 105 freeway, instead of heading to the airport, they'll take the southbound Sepulveda, go all the way across so they can make a U-turn and then go into the airport, because traffic off the 105 freeway is backing up to pretty much.
Arnold, let me just throw this at you. Take that to T Committee, okay? Transportation Committee, which would be a great one for us to get a whole report back on that. On the other two issues, you are coming in a little late. Let me give you one answer. We're exploring a flyaway from Irvine, which would be an exciting new one. But let's just take them literally. What about the idea with the port? That makes a lot of sense, too. It's a no-brainer.
It does sound like it makes a lot of sense until you consider that when you book a cruise, the cruise ship has exclusive contracts with bus companies to provide that transportation back and forth for their passengers. So the market really would not be there for us to offer some kind of a scheduled service, because they already cover that as a part of the cruise arrangements for the passengers.
Very good.
We have looked at that.
Okay, let's
Hold
go
on,
to the
Arnold,
next
but
thing. Yeah.
thank you for that. I really appreciate that. We'll talk with him outside a little bit more, because he seems to have some more energy on that. But appreciate your report. Thank you. Look for the report back in mid-November.
Thank you. And also, if I might say, Olivia, thank you for your work. And Mr. Biaggi, thank you. His father was the great leader of the Bureau of Sanitation that implemented recycling in Los Angeles.
Why don't you switch gears and join us over there?
He's doing a good job at the airport, I think. But
You could make that happen.
Del Biaggi did a great
You got to
job.
get reelected first. Well, Tommy is already in this.
No, don't say that. Okay, here we go. Every day's a blessing. We've got to work for
Every day
it.
is a blessing. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is a contract amendment with Host for concession agreements at Ontario.
Good morning.
Good morning, council members. Robin Rollins, LA Ontario Property and Concessions.
Bennett Monnier, LA Ontario Property and Concessions.
Andrea Mills, CAO Office.
Give us a report.
Okay, do you have any specific questions you want to
No,
start out
start
with,
off and
or-
give us just highlights.
Okay. The item is a 2-year term extension amendment to our 2 retail merchandise agreements with Host International. The original agreements were 5-year with 1 5-year option already extended. The reason for the request for these amendments lies primarily due to the recent downturn in the aviation industry. The 2-year amendment, we believe, will give us adequate time to assess the ongoing downturn and its impacts on our future concession planning at Ontario, and also time to develop an RFP that addresses the current and the future status of the concession industry in Ontario.
I have a bunch of questions, but Tommy, you want to go first?
No, I just think you're the business people. You recommend this. This is good. I know we have another case, Mr. Rosendahl, I believe the Recreation and Parks is looking at some of their concessions because of some major public works projects are continuing to keep the current vendors in check, because it makes no sense with this fluctuating season to go out. You may even get less than what you get now. So if we leave it to the business people, I'm okay, as long as the CAO recommends that it's okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay, thank you. That's my.
Here are my three questions, okay? Or four of them. What do we expect will be the reduction in employments at Ontario in the next year? And how did we use that number to determine the new minimum annual guarantees?
The early projections, as stated in the report, are 15% or higher.
Yeah.
Just during the month of August, we already saw an 18% reduction. And that doesn't include the departure of ExpressJet,
Right.
which was actually our second largest carrier,
I know.
and JetBlue, which had our only direct service to New York. We also lost ATA with our only direct service to Hawaii earlier in the year. So that 15% was very conservative. We're at 18. We expect the worst projections, it could go as high as 30%.
Have you heard anything about some of the Central and South American discussions?
We are in discussions with an international carrier. In fact, they will be meeting with the mayor's office tomorrow. I'm not at liberty at this point
Sure.
to say their name.
We hopeful?
So we're very hopeful with them, and if these discussions come to fruition, they're probably going to want to start up very quickly. We also have another small good news story, Great Lakes Airlines. It's an essential services carrier, and they're providing services from Merced, Visalia to Ontario, and from Prescott and Phoenix. Small airplanes with only 19 seaters, but if they're successful, they may take a look at the ExpressJet model, which was successful were it not for the price of fuel, and pick up some of those additional routes. So there's some light out there on the horizon. With respect to developing the MAG for these amendments, we took a look at the actual employments and the reduction in employments, and used that percent to the actual sales for 2007, and develop the MAGs, which are a little bit lower than what they currently were. But given the environment, we have to be good business partners all the way around. The concessionaires are facing a lot of extra business costs associated with product and delivery and staff costs. We want to make sure that they stay there and they provide good services.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Under the existing contract, you've answered this, but just for the record, does LAWA's percentage of the gross revenue exceed the minimum annual guarantee?
Our projections based on their sales and factoring in the decline in employments, we believe, yes, that the percentage fees paid to us will exceed the MAG.
When do we expect to issue the new RFP for Ontario concessions, and do you expect that it will generate more interest than the 1997 RFP?
Well, we're looking at having it issued no later than September of '09, and to have the new contracts in place by September of 2010. We're certainly hopeful that it will generate more interest. As Host was our only proposer back in 1997. Over the past few years, we've had a lot of concessionaire companies that have been very interested in Ontario, but that's when our employments were skyrocketing, ExpressJet came in.
Yes.
So I think that's going to be dependent on what happens in the industry over the next year.
Yep. My last question on that, and then I want to make a little editorial. Mr. Sachs, you can come on in. Come on up. What are we doing to keep airline service at Ontario? You've mentioned that in attracting new services, but come on up. You're just about up.
Well, as you know, Ontario is a residual airport,
Yeah.
so it's much more challenging for us. We have to hold our costs down and keep our revenues level just to
Yep.
keep our rates at a level rate. We are at the airport. We're doing everything we can for cost-cutting measures. Our airport manager has initiated several cost-cutting initiatives, even utilities. We've dimmed the lights in the terminals, and various programs such as that, where we're already seeing $20,000 and
Good.
$30,000 savings a month. So really what we can do at Ontario is to try to really take a hard line on our costs and keep our costs from going going up and hopefully to go
How's our
down.
cooperation going with the private sector folks that are trying to work with us to do the UPS and FedEx cargo there?
The Aeroterm project?
Yes.
That's challenging times for cargo also.
Right.
They don't have a assigned tenant for their first development. They do have a time frame that they have to build the first 150,000 square foot building, and they still have another 12 to 18 months, I believe. So I think they're also trying to just wait out a little bit this downturn and see if things start to pick up.
Great. Let me just make a comment. I have a strong feeling that as the next few years go on, Ontario will pick up dramatically and be more robust for several reasons. First reason is LAX, modernization, yes, expansion, no. Our communities around LAX, both in the city of Los Angeles and the surrounding communities, are very clear that we want modernization of LAX. And we are doing dramatic modernization thanks to Gina Marie Lindsay and her team and the support that's happening from my district and the mayor. This is beautiful because as we modernize the Tom Bradley terminal, as we start going forward with the People Mover and we start going with consolidated rental and the Green Line into it and the Midfield terminal, those projects will bring the LAX into the 21st century. And make it a modernized airport, and we all know the formulas of takeoff and landing fees will change, and airlines will know, I know, everybody knows that there is a market for Ontario right now from not only the Inland Empire, but from Orange County and from Ventura, and all we need is nonstop, direct, frequent, and discounted flights out of Ontario to draw the air traffic from the ground to there. And we know that as our modernization continues, it will become an opportunity from an airline's perspective to do that in Ontario. So we're very hopeful. So don't in any way be discouraged by the moment of the economic situation in our great country and in the world. So just keep moving forward with that positive spirit. And I expect in a year from now and 18 months from now, we'll be smiling a little bit more about Ontario.
We'll be back with a great proposal.
Yeah, and we'll be more regional than ever before.
Absolutely.
That's my
Thank
hope.
you.
Stay there for a second. You're up.
Arnold Sachs again. I was curious, again, I brought this subject up a few times in front of this board. You're discussing a contract with Host for food service. I'm curious to know why the discussion at Ontario Airport when you refuse to look into the service at LAX with the parking lot, with the concession that goes on at the holding lot for the cab companies. There is no movement on the city getting money from that area. The city's rolling in the dough, I guess. Why are they letting a private contractor subcontract out city property to another food vendor and that private contractor collecting fees? I'm talking about authorized taxi cab supervision. They subcontract out to a vendor to park a lunch wagon there for the use for the cabs. City property, and they've been doing it for years. They get $27,000 a month.
Who does?
ATA, authorized taxi cab supervision. It's in the newspapers. I've talked about that dozens of times.
Who's here from the airport department?
Why is the city not
into that?
Not on top of that.
Put it in writing, Arnold, and we should investigate that. I don't know if that's
Get it with her. She's right there.
I've talked to them about it.
I want an answer back. I agree.
Okay.
Can we get an answer back?
And then
Okay.
there was another comment made that there's a threshold for when this construction has. This is a little off for the storage facility or the UPS facility. You mentioned
Yeah.
a building.
Go ahead, yeah.
That they have a threshold, they have to have it complete. So coming back full circle, is there a penalty they'll pay? And if there's a penalty they'll pay, why is there not a penalty for the Grand Avenue project? They're way behind on their threshold.
Thank you very much for your
I
comments.
don't know if they land any planes on Grand Avenue, but they do on the 6th Street Bridge.
It's a matter of the threshold, sir. It's not a matter of what's project.
Do get with him right now, but I would like to get an answer back on what.
Good report.
Arnold, please chat with her for a second and we'll get going.
Nice to see you.
You want to do it now? Or you're coming up next anyhow? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate what you're saying. Stay with us. 7 minutes. We got to go.
Is that approved? Is that item approved?
Approved.
I move and approve it with the great help of the leader of this committee.
Item number 3 is a change order for installation of 26 boarding bridges at LAX and 6 bridges at Ontario. These are passenger boarding bridges.
Good morning.
Good morning. Intisar Duram, Los Angeles World Airport. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. The item in front of you is a change order to an ongoing contract with a supplier of the boarding bridges for us, primarily at LAX, and primarily supporting the Tibet modernization program.
I got the concept. I just asked the clerk. In the future, I'd love them to have a little disc they would put in, and up on the screen they would just click, 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 and show us what you're doing. Because I'm sure you do that when you plan that out in the future.
Yeah.
But I know what this is about, and I would like to support it, but I'd like to hear Mr. Rosenthal's detailed questions.
Would love that.
Good point. That would be helpful. We could just kind of flip over there and take a quick peek and get
We
it
do that actually at our board often. Would love to bring this
Yeah,
presentation
bring that
here.
stuff in. That's why we got those flat screens there.
Definitely.
Let's do that. Yeah, we all like it. Okay.
Yeah.
Are the NLA gates ready for when the Airbus begins service at LAX? now?
Both gates are up and ready and operational and have been tested with an A380 on site. We had to make some adjustments as far as the fueling pits and the striping. However, the gates are ready. Both gates are ready, the south gate and the north gate, and on at Tibet.
Tommy, you got to go on that plane with me. I have to pay, apparently, my own personal money.
Me too.
Go on.
You know why you have to pay? You know who the big four were?
Help me.
Stanford, Leland, Stanford, Crockett, Hopkins, and Huntington. And the big four in California history really dominated California politics. And politicians would ride the railroad for free.
I see.
And that way they thought they influenced. So there's a state law dating back to the big four that says any public official immediately forfeits their position if they ride for free on any form of transit. So there's a little history. The big
As
four.
usual.
But it goes back 100 years.
Okay,
So.
yeah, I would like a report from Lau, officially, this is a request, agendizing for the next TCT committee, giving us an update on the progress of the Tom Bradley International Improvement Project, including a budget update. We know all
great.
kinds of great things have been happening. We've had discussions and so on.
Okay.
We'd like a full-blown update on where we are.
What do you think, Bill? Should check with the clerk and the ITA, see if we could do it in that screen? We got technology, we should use it.
Sure, why not? Yeah. If you got data that would go up there, it would be lovely to see that, okay? So the first thing we want to ask for next budget, for next meeting agendized, is the Bradley Improvement Project update. Then we also want, not related to that, but we also want an LAX North Side planning progress update. Everybody's excited about that 350 acres where we are. Most recently, Otis came to me about their expansion plans. Obviously, that's all got to be tied into the community and to the process, and everybody has to be part of that discussion, as all these other groups are. There's a lot of people coming to me with different thoughts and ideas, soccer fields for this and so on and so forth. So I don't want to wait another couple of 3-5 years type thing. I'd like to get a fresh update where we are, especially with the city planning department that's going to play a role going forward, and how we get that role planned. I'd like those planners to be here and explain what role they will have in it. But most importantly, our community is all geared up to have very meaningful discussions on various ideas that we think would be exciting. And the third thing I would like an update at the next meeting is the Westchester Golf Course. I was first told by LAWA that they would be in those holes by the end of this year. Now I hear that's not the case, that there's going to be a joint RFP with Van Nuys and blah, blah, blah. And I don't have a handle on when those 3 holes are going to be in there.
Well,
big issue for our local folk,
Okay.
too.
Sounds good.
Anything else, Mr.
I want to vote on it now if we could, so I can give you
Yeah, but before you run, we have one more public comment from the great Arnold Sachs. Come on up, but that's for general comment. But yes, we're moving forward with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Approved
very
that in
much.
Second.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Bless you. See you downstairs.
See you, Councilman.
And now we're open to general public comment. Mr. Arnold Sachs.
Yeah, Arnold Sachs again. Couple things. There was a great article, not a great article, there was an article in the Daily Breeze regarding some discussion from the auditor and the Port of LA's bookkeeping practices or practices of the Port of LA. Why? And it goes on to say that she's done audits there for 3, 5 years, 6 years, and the problems still keep popping up. Why the problems? Why the continuation? She's not here, and unfortunately, why the questions regarding an ethics policy with the Department of Water and Power, an ethics policy with the Department of Harbors? What happened at the airport? Why, after 2 years of all this planning and contract offering and all this other stuff, was there a sudden change and the Mid-City Terminal decided, well, we're not going to get the Mid-City Terminal going, so we'll just renovate Tom Bradley? What happened to the 2 bonds that were passed? The one by the city, back when the first construction went up, I believe, to quote another famous councilman, the most expensive project to be built in L.A. That would be you, I'm quoting. The bond that was passed way, way, way before they even decided what they were going to do. And then LA just passed another bond for over $900 million for construction. 2 bonds, less construction, more money. What exactly is going on? The public has the right, and again, nothing, as always, for transportation. Nothing again. There was quite a few comments. There was some harbor, the rail line to the South Bay. Quite a few people questioning when are we going to get a rail system up to along the coast to go from South Bay to Santa Monica. You know what I'm going to say. As always, thank you for your time, your answers, and your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sachs. Any other public comments? No? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Dad. You made me look smart. Hey, want to do some public comment, Mr. Bonner?
Sure. So you never called me back last night. I was waiting by the side of the road because I didn't have my earpiece. When I got